for being with us one more time again at Safe Space Talks. We welcome you. We say thank you. We're still celebrating Mental Health Awareness Month. Woo, woo. We
Yay.
want you to get well. We are here for you. And today's topic is paranoid delusions. Oh my goodness, we have a lot for you today and a testimony. But anyway, remember this is for educational purposes only. And if you like what you hear and see, remember to subscribe, like, and share. And oh my goodness, we're loving the comments. Please leave comments below. I always wanted to do that. I saw other YouTubers do that. Do it below, right? So listen, paranoid delusions mostly or closely associated with schizophrenia delusions. It's a belief that is false for paranoid delusions. The false can is a false that cannot be explained. Okay, because we can believe something that's false, but this is something that cannot be explained on an educational level, common sense. It's just hard to explain or make sense. Symptoms include feeling like someone is spying on you, and I worked with a client once, and he had the smoke detector in his room, and he thought the government was a spying tool. He would tape it, he would pull it out. I mean, we had to have it. It was a residence, so you have to have the smoke detector in the room. And I mean, he was giving us the hardest time of just constantly breaking it, and we have to put another one in. So that's an example. There's plenty, and you'll hear. Um, So, all right, hold on. All right, where's my mind going? Oh no, am I bugging out? No, okay, I'm only joking with you guys. Some may feel like they're being followed. They may drink something and feel like they've been poisoned. Some people have alien sightings, and these are beliefs that may lead to one harming themselves or harming someone else. And another piece of the paranoid delusion is hallucinations, which is a person who may sense something. They sense that someone's following them, or they feeling like things are crawling on them, or they have voices. Then those voices ridicule them or demean them. So that's the difference of hearing those kind of voices. And I will pass the mic to Dr. Latoya.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us. And today we have an amazing topic: delusional disorder or paranoid delusions, actually. And then we're going to talk about some delusional disorders as well. So, one of the things that I would love to just let you know that because a person has paranoid delusions does not mean that they have a schizophrenia diagnosis. So delusions can come from a number of things, right? A person could have a delusional disorder, right? It could be medication induced, it could be drug induced. It does not have to come from schizophrenia. So there is a difference, but oftentimes when a person has schizophrenia, they have delusions and hallucinations as well. So just wanted to clear that up, because oftentimes when a person mentions psychosis, or when a person mentions delusions, they automatically think that people have schizophrenia. And it's not necessarily true, but it happens in the population with schizophrenia as well. And so this topic is very near and dear to me, because I have a brother who struggles from substance use psychosis. And it's very difficult when you're dealing with people who have delusions, because they can appear to be their normal selves. So if you were to meet my brother and you would speak to him, you would have no idea about his diagnosis, because everything that he's telling you could possibly happen, right? It's just not true. And so, for example, he is preoccupied sometimes about my education track, right? So he'll talk about going to a school that he knows that I went to, and he sees my picture on the wall at the school when he goes. And it's not true. The school that I went to is in Texas, and my face could be on the wall at some point in time, but it's not up there now.
Yeah.
And so this is something that he believes. And I don't get into a lot of back and forth because that's his belief, and I
Mm.
cannot convince him that that's not true. In his mind, it is. And so, if you could think about how difficult it is for family members who have to have conversation with their family, especially knowing that the person who they may not reflect that same way anymore. And so conversations that you used to be able to have, you may not be able to have anymore because they go far left, right? And fortunately for us, he's not as paranoid. There are times when he has been. And again, when you're dealing with substances, you never know how a person's disorder can manifest. So, very near and dear topic to my heart, and I am excited that we are bringing this information to you. And so, again, we're not here to diagnose you with anything.
Yeah.
If you feel that you're having any type of delusional behavior or have hearing things or seeing things that other people are not hearing or seeing, then I recommend that you talk to your providers, your local providers there. If you're having any suicidal thoughts, definitely call the suicide hotline or report to your nearest ER. Okay. And so I will pass it over to Dr. Sharmi or Dr. Heather.
Well, you gotta say which one.
Oh, well,
Hey, so
so
I
this
guess
is
it would
It's
be me.
uh, Dr. Sharmi's baby. So let's
Hey, listen, I always love Latoya. She said, "Good morning, good
See,
afternoon,
I love
good
it too.
evening."
I love it too.
I love it. So I'm just
wherever
gonna
you are in
say,
the world.
"Hey." Um, so excited to be here. Listen, I love this topic as well. I have an uncle. He is deceased now, but he was a paranoid schizophrenic, right? Before he passed away 2 years ago. But I first want to just, I'm always on the definition. So I want to give you some definition. So, first of all, let's talk about a paranoia. And so, a paranoia is nothing but a feeling. Let me be clear
Hmm.
about that. It is something that you think and or a feeling like you're being threatened. And
Mm.
so a lot of times things that happen to us, we feel threatened, right?
Hmm.
But this is an abnormal feeling of being threatened. That is what paranoia is. The delusion part comes when you have now created a narrative around the feeling.
That's good.
So I just want to make sure that I give some insight and some language to paranoid delusion. So we first two different concepts that we are merging together. So the paranoia is your feeling and thinking that you're being threatened. And listen, some of us can be threatened, right? But it's
Hmm.
an abnormal thinking or feeling. Then we have the delusion is when you've now created, you have manifested, you have groomed, you have ruminated now the narrative of it.
Hmm.
Okay. And so the narratives typically are found based on things that you have already heard and or seen. Let me be clear about that. So when we are having delusions, they don't just drop out the sky. It is already something that has been embedded, encoded, implanted that you've seen or heard. And
Hmm.
so then what happens is it is now something that has been fantasized,
That's
right?
good.
That's good.
It's
That's
been
good.
fantasized. And now we have went from the threat of it to being delusional. So
Nice.
I just want to give us some insight on those things. Now I'm going to give just an example because I love examples. And this is, we all have had so many different stories. My uncle, he was diagnosed at 16. It started off with the paranoia. And then later we went into schizophrenia, right? It started off with paranoid that people were out to hurt him, to get him, to kill him, to make him do things. He was born in 1930. So he struggled with interactions with Caucasians. And so at 16, he thought that his teacher was trying to harm him, kill him. This was his thought This was his feeling based on what was happening to him during that time. So it was never discussed. So as it continued to fester, as he continued to fantasize about his teacher, the Caucasians, because he struggled with interactions with them, as he continued to groom that, it then became delusional, where he was like, "Oh, she trying to kill me," so he went to try to kill her, and it became that mechanism. And so these were the things that were happening. So when we're talking about this, it is important that we understand just duration of time,
That's good. That's good.
frequencies, because as clinicians, we're either clinicians, um, doctors, advocates, but all of us understand that there is an onset, which means when it first happened, the first time
Mhm.
you've ever experienced. Duration is
Right.
how long, and frequency is it every day. So
Right.
we all of us on this feed understand that. So what we want to do is make sure we just give clarity, so that if anybody's just experiencing anything that's considered abnormal, that you deal with it. And
Right.
so in some instances, I've had individuals that, um, because of things that they've seen or happened or heard, um, the threat became intensive for them. So I've had a client that he got completely naked, ran down the street, and cut his arm off,
Oh my
because
God.
he said that, the aliens was trying to, penetrate or get through his arm, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, listen, during that time, I want to be clear about it. During that time, there was a movie out called Aliens,
Yes.
or Aliens or something, where they would come on Earth, take on the form of a human, but we didn't
Mm-hmm.
know. That was back in the like 2000s, 90s. I think it was called Aliens. I'm not sure. And so what I know about that young man is he used to watch that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So now we have a vision,
Mm-hmm.
a thought, a
Right.
feeling of
Right.
something that he has watched repeatedly over and over again. So now that he's having a mental break, or things are not going well because he did have some paranoia and delusions, there were things going on already chemically. What
Mm-hmm.
he believed was what he had saw
That's
for,
good.
for
Right.
months and
Right.
months and months. So I
Mm-hmm.
just want to be clear about, when we are talking about these things, it is about your thoughts. It is about the things that you see. It is about the things that you hear.
Yeah.
And what it
Yeah.
helps to do
Mhm.
is to create a picture.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you take in vision, it is a picture.
Gotcha.
We are dreamers. We have imaginations, and our minds are created to do that. The mind is so amazing. I
Yeah.
love it. It's
Yeah.
so intricate in terms of how everything goes together. And so these are some of those things that causes that, because we all have imagination, right?
Right.
Everybody has imagination. But what we're talking about when we're talking about paranoid delusions, or even schizophrenia, which we're not even touching on that, but we're talking about the paranoid delusions, I need you guys to always be thinking that we all have an imagination. And so sometimes we're talking about, it has been, exaggerated, right?
Mhm.
It has grown. It goes from something that can be normal to abnormal.
Normal.
From me saying that I'm gonna get married and have a picket fence, to me believing that I'm already married, that I see him every day, that I'm living in the house, and I'm going to the house that don't belong to me, and I'm thinking the husband.
Right.
As and so I just wanted to say that as I pass it to Dr. Sharmy.
Dr. Sharmini.
Hey.
Hey.
So this
I want to talk about this because I love what everybody has brought forth so far, and even the fact how Dr. Heather just began to give it more language. She began to give a definition on what it is and to better give us an understanding. And I believe that what we don't understand, we fight against, or even the
Mm-hmm.
concepts. How can we overcome something that we don't even realize is an issue, right? And so when you're thinking about the whole concept of these paranoid delusions, then like Dr. Heather said, it's just from a mind state or a mindset that it's not abnormal things that are meaning. When I say it's not abnormal things, what I mean by that is these are things that possibly or has happened to people,
Mm-hmm.
but in your case they're just to the extreme.
Mm-hmm.
I love how she brought out the fact that and see, this is where we have to be careful, because especially us in the body of Christ, because we believe, that thing, well, go get your dress, go do this, go do that, right? But now if I am already fragile mentally, that can be setting
That's
me
good.
up for
Oh,
something.
that's
Now
good.
y'all need to catch that.
Mm-hmm.
That can be setting me up for something more on the outskirts than what it needs to be, right? Because now I'm already seeing myself, and even I got a ring, I got all of
Right,
these things,
right.
baby. That's not normal, that's
Mm-hmm.
not faith.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we got to get a clear definition. That's not faith. Okay, so we got to pull those
Yeah.
things back in. Okay, because you have to understand, now you came to a place where you're starting to operate in something.
Mm-hmm.
That's
What
good.
many people don't understand is that and I just did a post on this and even a little short video about the fact that many people confuse faith with just hoping in something. That's not real faith. Says that I'm obedient to the word that was spoken to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's real faith. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but this is not our biblical lessons right now. So let's get back into where we're going. So my thing is, though, we have to be careful, because sometimes with this paranoid delusion, we can step into a place which I like to call, Dr. Heather uses it all the time, catastrophic thinking.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And so in our biblical terms, it's called evil forebodings,
Mm-hmm.
right? Meaning that we have already actively seen this thing manifest, and we have called it into our existence before it is even a thing to be even called, if that makes sense. And so we have to get to a place when we're dealing with the mind, that we understand, number one, how powerful the mind is.
Yeah,
Yes.
Your thoughts create for you.
that's good.
Mm-hmm.
They create for you. And many of us don't understand that our thoughts is creating for us even when we're not speaking.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And so when you're thinking about the paranoid delusions, then you have to understand that the thoughts to that individual, I'm already experiencing it. So I have created this world
Mm-hmm.
mentally,
Mm-hmm.
that everything that I'm thinking of is already manifesting.
Right.
Now, here's the thing: nobody sees it but you,
Right.
Mhm.
Right.
right?
That's good.
Nobody in the natural can see those things in operation but you. But now, to take it a little deeper for some people, and this is like listen, see, because we have to understand, regardless to what we believe, there's still a natural and a spirit that's working hand in
Man.
hand consistently.
Paranoid.
So even though you may not believe in spiritual things, just because you don't believe it does not mean it's operating. Some people don't believe in gravity, but go try to step off something at a height. I bet you believe in gravity then, right? And so you have to understand that just because you don't believe something does not mean that it's true. So why am I saying that? Because what some people are doing is entertaining the spirit world. And so in their mindset, what they are seeing is very much real to them, even though you as the individual cannot see it.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that I can talk about this thing like that is because of my own story, having to do, like Dr. Heather and Latoya said, and Nigeria. It's not necessarily that you move into the dynamic of being schizophrenic, but you have to understand, paranoid delusion does lead to schizophrenia
Opens the door.
if not dealt with. It definitely will lead to that. And so my story is it led me to schizophrenia. Now I'm gonna back up because I like how Dr. Heather began to talk about just a little bit about even the environment, even the culture that many people find themselves in. Your culture really does play a role in how your belief system is even going to activate itself,
Right.
right? Because what will be a cultural thing for me may not be a cultural thing for somebody else. And so therefore they're experiencing it different from how I'm going to experience it.
Mhm.
And so my dynamics really does play a role in how I begin to see things.
Mhm.
And so for me, when I began to deal with with the paranoid schizophrenia, because that is exactly what I was dealing with. Paranoid schizophrenia, the hallucinations, the seeing things you don't see, all of these particular things. But again, it started in a place of just being paranoia, right? But that paranoia began to elevate itself, and now I'm in a whole different level of psychosis. So now I have myself operating right at a different level of
Right.
schizophrenia, and it's like, wow, how did I get here? So what was just a little paranoia here and there, because Dr. Heather say we all can deal with it at some time, right?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
But that does not necessarily mean that I'm diagnosed with something
Right.
or something is necessarily
Right.
going
Right.
wrong.
Right.
Because as Latoya said, it can just be a medication that I was on.
Right.
And that medication interacted with some things, and now it got me just being paranoid at the moment, right?
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
But about time I stopped the medication, now I'm back in my right mind. But that's not true with everybody.
Right.
That's not everybody's case. And so you have to understand these dynamics if we ever really want to see ourselves walking at a level of wholeness
Come
that
on.
I know is possible for every
Mm-hmm.
individual.
Mm-hmm.
Now, listen, we are not for one saying that people do not literally battle with certain type of illnesses when it comes to the mind or mental
Right.
illnesses. Some people, and I can give you, even if for you who may say, well, Jesus heals all things. Yes, he does. We affirm believe in that.
Right.
He really does.
Yeah.
But you got to understand there was also a scripture say who sinned, the parents or this man,
Right.
right? And he said this was done for the glory of God. Nobody sinned.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, there are instances that some things can literally be some imbalances that people are facing. And I know many people may not believe in chemical imbalances, but honey, imbalances are real. It doesn't matter whether you believe in them or not, they're real. So you have to understand some chromosomes don't work well together. They just don't. And so those chromosomes in our body would begin to cause different effects at different times. So everything is not always, listen, and this may just hurt some people's feelings, but you have to understand every disease, everything that happens to us, all of these things, it has to do with the fact that we are in a fallen world. Right. And so that means that every disease and every mental illness, it's a possibility that it may not be healed. It really is a possibility. But we have to come to a place where we know and understand what is and what's not. What's demonically inspired, what's
Come
not
on.
demonically inspired.
Mm-hmm.
We have to come to a place where we say, okay, this is a real life issue and it needs the medication that's put forth by the doctors. And we have to understand whether or not these things are spiritually influenced. And
Mm-hmm.
so you have these dynamics that I believe that even a many in the body of Christ have not yet come into the knowledge of, right?
Mhm.
And so now we got all this confusion and these inflictions going on, not understanding, right? Now listen again, I believe God can heal all things.
Right.
I really do. But there are some things that will not be healed. I believe in that too. Right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
come
Right.
on.
Right. Right. No.
We're not
Yeah.
even, there's
Yeah,
a lot
it's
of
a
people that
story.
don't even
It
Yeah.
becomes a part of your story, your process.
Right.
You see what I'm
Right.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
And so when you think about these things, then you have to understand that even when I was dealing with the paranoia side of schizophrenia, it was my reality. It was real to me.
Mm-hmm.
Even though nobody else can see it, even though nobody else believe it. I was talking to them last week and I was like, I remember the doctor saying, well, what do you see when you cut the TV on? That just that flew me off even more.
Right.
Because I'm telling you that I'm hearing these voices in my head
Right.
and they telling me to do all of these things. And
Mhm.
then you say, well, what do you see when you cut the TV on?
Right.
Sir.
Right.
And I ain't on the Lord like that, y'all. So he got a good cussing out, okay? He really did. Okay. He just did. And I didn't even have the grace to repent.
Oh
Do you understand?
Lord.
It wasn't even nothing in me that wanted to
That
repent.
part. That part right
Okay.
there.
You see what I'm saying? It just, come on. So we gotta deal with these realities and truths, though, because we have to understand that when you're dealing with certain things, your mind just don't immediately go to, oh, well, let me repent. Jesus sees me. No, because if I'm telling you that something is going on and it becomes real to me, and this is the part that I want us to understand: these dynamics, these hallucinations, these imaginations that Dr. Heather talked about, all of these things was reality to me.
Right.
They were my reality. Although you did not see them, although you were seeing different things, I didn't see nothing. I mean, people could be walking and all I saw was demon. I'm telling you, it was like the manifestation of these entities, and it did not make sense. And I'm like, oh my God, y'all don't see that? Oh, y'all don't see it. You know what?
Right.
And so it kept me isolated because people like, oh, she crazy. What's she talking about? Though we see stuff, you understand? I mean, to the point, y'all gotta understand when people are going through these psychosis and all this paranoia. I literally stopped. I have witnesses. I literally stopped driving a car in the middle of the highway. I just put the car on brakes and said, and then just start hollering, no, 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 no. And the people, because they call, nickname Mimi. Mimi, please go. Mimi, please go. Now I got like a group of people in the car, but Mimi wasn't moving because, the demon, the voice in my head told me that your time is up. You can come home now. And I'm like, no, no, no. So I just stopped the car in the middle of the highway.
Yeah.
Okay. And so I'm trying to help you to understand that this paranoia, it's so real, right? Nobody was seeing the things that I was seeing. Nobody experienced the thing. And all of these things was as real as I'm talking to you right now.
Right.
And so this is why, when people talk about people that may have a mental illness, or when you see people on the streets and you begin to laugh and you begin to say, well, they talking to themselves. No, no, no. They're not talking to themselves. They're just talking to an entity that you can't see.
That's it. That's it.
But they're not talking to themselves. They see it. Please understand, regardless of what you believe, the spirit realm is real. And until you are an individual that has actually really gone through some type of mental psychosis, you will never be able to truly understand it. You just will not be able to understand it. And so when we're thinking about these dynamics of paranoid delusions, these delusions are realities to those that begin to experience. And so I want us to be just to take a moment, you guys, Latoya, Dr. Heather, and Nigeria, to just, I want you guys to come on. I'm going to go to the side, and I want you to just give a little more thought, a little more language, and just a little more realities to even what I have shared. So for Dr. Heather, you up.
Yes, well, great. Hi. Well, listen, I am excited because listen, I've been doing what I do for 22 years. And when I say I have stories, I have stories. But I want to say that, in regard to what Dr. Sharmi is saying, that is definitely a true statement. And I think one of the biggest things is that we have to understand the type, who we are and the individuals that we are, right? So I'm going to give a quick, somewhat story. So because I know that mental health is in my lineage, it's in my family. And I mean genetically, it's in the family as well as. So what I know is because of what I do for a living, I understand that there is a transference that occurs. And that's a whole, and it is become spiritual. It is. I understand that there is a transference transference, right? And so I'm going to say this, and hopefully you all will be able to understand this. I know that there's a transference. It's in my family. And so I use prayer to fight against what I know is there, right?
Amen.
But for an instance, before I really realized that, I know that it's schizophrenia is in my family because my uncle, I've dealt with it. And so because I deal with dissociative, schizophrenia, bipolar, that is anything complex trauma, that's me. I've done it. There was an instance where, even as she said, I know that the spirit was trying to kill me. I stopped in the middle of the highway and I was running around my car screaming because it was trying to kill me and throw me in the road. And the trucks were moving, and it was a whole complete situation. And so I recognized this. And so I had to use other tools that I know we're not really discussing here, but I had to use other tools in order to help me, because this is what I do for a living. And everything that I deal with is entities. They're talking to me. They're just all of these things. So I had to be able to combat them, right? And so I am saying all of these things to say that we have to recognize and be aware of us, proclivities. I say that to say, even when we're talking about individuals that have physiological diseases, right? Let's say diabetes. I'm going to use that one. It is in my family. So if I don't do specific things in terms of food, exercise, all of those things, because it is a gene, right, that is already inside of me. It becomes activated.
Right.
If I don't do what I am supposed to do, right, it becomes activated. I have yeast in my blood. It is non-detectable when I do what I'm supposed to do. The moment I start eating sugar, yeast begins to grow. So now what was in my body that was non-detectable, which wasn't having an effect on me, it was dormant.
Right.
The moment I decided to start having sugar, I just activated something that was dormant.
That's good.
Okay, so when we're talking about mental health, any situation or circumstance can take you over the line.
Yeah.
One trauma, one thing can take you over the line. And so I'm saying that to say that in some instances, it is already dormant. And what happens is one onset, one frequency, one interaction, one thing that happens to you can trigger it. And now you in full, you're out of you. Now it is manifesting. You can find it. We can do all those things. So these are just those important things that we really need to understand. And because the mind is so sensitive, I used to watch scary movies, y'all. Listen, that was my thing. I loved scary movies. I loved them, loved them, loved them. But listen, because I loved scary movies so much, I have also now created a paranoia that I experience and that I deal with. Not necessarily in some instances, I'm gonna use bugs. I'm going to use that one. So because I have created this paranoia concerning bugs, because I used to watch it over and over again. I remember a roach crawled in my cousin's ear. And so now I have all of these imprinting of things. I am terrified. When I say terrified, I'm terrified of bugs. Ladybugs, baby bugs, in between bugs, which makes it difficult for me to even be outside because anxious. I have an anxiety, which has now caused intergenerational trauma.
Right.
My daughter has never experienced bugs, but because I'm terrified of bugs, she's
Mhm.
terrified of bugs.
Yeah.
So she can't step on a roach, she can't step on a spider. She's frozen in sheer panic.
Mhm.
Are you understanding what I'm saying? So we had to be. So here's the thing. God forbid that my paranoia become abnormal.
Speak your truth.
Right.
Listen, I listen, you have to understand, and we have to be clear. I had to call Dr. Sharmi because I was having a whole paranoia attack. And I mean, it was serious. I had to call for backup. Why?
That's my thing,
Because
right?
it's already
Mhm.
there. It is just non-detectable.
Right.
That's
Oh,
good. That's
Yeah.
good.
it's just non-detectable.
I
Mhm.
like
But what
that.
happened was something triggered it.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And then my heart began to race. I
Mhm.
was going into a full panic attack.
Mm.
Why? Because it's already there. It's non-detectable. So what I'm saying is that when we're
I
talking
love
about
it.
this paranoia, when we're talking about delusions, when we're talking about narratives, when we're talking about things that we've seen in our mind, when we're
Mhm.
talking about trauma, we have to really be careful about things that we do, things that we say,
Yes,
who
ma'am.
we interact with, because it only literally
Mhm.
takes one situation. Why am I saying that? My son was in a car accident. He almost died. And what the trauma was, they couldn't get in touch with me. Now, if I can't get in touch with Dr. Sharmi and I'm continuing to call her and call her and call her and she's not answering, I've just went into a whole panic now. My paranoia comes in. I'm having I'm having a catastrophic thinking. I'm like, oh my God, something
Yeah.
happened to Dr. Sharmi. Maybe somebody got her. Maybe she was kidnapped. Maybe something happened. I got to call the morgue. I got to call the hospital. Listen,
Mhm.
I've been there and done that. Don't
Right.
think that
Yeah.
I'm just saying this. Oh, I've been there and done that. I'm sending a wellness check. I haven't talked to her.
I
Something
love it.
happened. She
I
done
love
died
it.
in a house.
Yeah.
Maybe something happened.
Yeah.
Something happened to the whole fam. I'm just telling
Right.
you. That's a
Oh my
paranoia.
God. Yeah.
That
Right.
is
Yeah.
paranoia.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
is not addressed.
Mhm.
It then becomes delusional. Now
Right.
we are taking it as excavated. That's the
Mhm.
word. It begins to grow, it begins to
Mhm.
manifest. And
Mhm.
so then I have to tell my friends, listen, I'm being honest. I have to tell my friends,
Yeah.
hey, I don't do well with
Mhm.
if I've called you, and I've not
Mhm.
talked to you,
I love it, Dr.
my
Heather.
paranoia, because there is something that is dormant in me
Mhm.
that is triggered because of that. And now I just get into this panic where I have been, listen, I have driven 4 hours before. Hear me, hear me. Four, because I was in a whole paranoia, because I thought
Mhm.
something had happened and they were
Mm.
chilling. They
Right.
just
Mhm.
they couldn't get to the call. So I need you guys to understand that as I pass.
I'll come on. You know what? I love everything we are saying because we are clear that we are self-aware of our emotions, our feelings, and our state. And I'm always saying we have to protect our ear gates and eye gates. Like Dr. Heather said, it was something that was visual. It's not something that was already created. It's something you have already experienced that
Mhm.
now has become abnormal where some can watch a scary movie and go to bed and live and everything's okay. But what if you watching these scary movies and then you have a traumatic experience and
Happen.
uh, then everything is created in your mind for you to now become paranoid.
Mhm.
You watch Sleeping with the Enemy, you broke up with your boyfriend, now you stressed out, now you got chains and all kinds of things on the doors because you think he getting ready to come and get you and he ain't even thinking about you. When I was struggling with PTSD, one of the things I battled with was hallucinations. I could see
Mhm.
smoke, no one else could see it. I'm running, I'm panicking. I'm like, we got to get out the room. The room's going to blow up. It's a fire. You know, my situation was I was in a fire. So anything related to fire, like
Mhm.
the fire engine, a fire alarm, smoke, anything would could trigger me into a space of run for your life. I think
Mhm.
I suffered so much with flight and fight that I could probably be a case study because everything made me just so hyper intensive about everything. I was sensitive to everything. So being self-aware, and I love the word you're using, abnormal, because we have to stop as a community of people that when we see something abnormal, we think we're so insensitive or don't have any empathy that we don't want to ask second and third level questions, that we take the surface questions of saying, are you all right? And allowing someone to say, oh, I'm okay. No, everything's okay. When you just witness that something is wrong. So,
Mhm.
you know, there's ways to approach a person, but let's not laugh. Let's not be insensitive. Let's not, and especially with our own family members, because
Yes.
your first home is your first ministry. You
Mhm.
know, Dr. Latoya said her brother. You know, Dr. Heather said you said your
My
uncle,
uncle.
your
Mhm.
uncle. You know, I have a sister that has tried to commit suicide 3 times. So we are here at Safe Space Talks because, again, we're not only giving you language and signs and tools to use, but we have the compassion and the empathy, and we understand what you're going through. And so it's not for you to just be, you know, here like what they talking about. What we're talking is some good stuff for you for free. Okay.
Mhm.
But we are available and you can reach out to us at Safe Space Talks at gmail.com. And I'm going to pass it to Latoya
For the free, no.
For
So,
free.
um, what Nigeria is saying is absolutely true. You know, we have to be sensitive to what people are going through. And so, if you think about people who struggle with a paranoid delusion or even have a delusional disorder or have some type of psychosis, they already, as Dr. Sharmi said, are isolated. And so,
Mhm.
if you think about isolation, feeling alone,
Mhm.
sometimes feeling depressed, right? Having other comorbid symptoms or conditions as well as the paranoid delusion. So they could have depression, right? They could have a generalized anxiety. They can have panic attacks. They can go through all these other things, and so they may separate themselves to protect themselves, and they might separate themselves to protect you. You never know. You
That's
know
Yeah,
what I'm
right.
saying? And
that
so
part.
they may know, well, let me just stay over here because I already know how I am. And if this person looks at me this way, or if
That,
this person says something to me,
that
I'm going
part.
to pop off. So let me just keep myself. I don't do well with people. I've had patients say that I don't do well with people. So I just
Right.
stay away, right? They understand that. Leave them alone sometimes,
Right.
let them
Right.
have their space. Be careful how you speak to people.
That's
Be
right.
careful how you treat people because you never know. As Dr. Heather said, sometimes we can have a gene, it may not be expressed, it may not be turned on. And so you don't know what can happen in your life. People who have some of these disorders go through high levels of stress. They can be perfectly fine until they're in the right environment at the right time, right? And then all of a sudden that gene is expressed and they're
Mm.
no longer the same. And so you don't know.
Right.
You have to be sensitive to that. Also, you know, their life expectancy is decreased,
Mm.
right? Because, as Dr. Heather said, the story of one of her patients running and then cutting his arm. Can you imagine? So if you have people who stick stuff up their private parts. You have people who won't eat certain foods because they feel like food is bugged with something or that people are poisoning them, right? You have people they won't take medications. They may have a blood pressure issue, right? They may need to be on anti-hypertensives, and they may not take their medication because they feel like the medication is poison,
Right.
right? And so they can have all these other comorbidities and they not treating them because they feel like they can't trust the medication. They can't trust the doctors, right? They could be paranoid in that area. And so their life expectancy is decreased.
Yeah.
So they're already dealing with a lot. And so they don't need their family members or even people in the street being insensitive and being mean because they don't understand it.
That's
All
good.
you have to
That's
do is
good.
take the time to understand it. You may not understand it in that way, but you can be empathetic.
That's
Yeah.
You can be kind,
That's
right?
good.
You see somebody, a lot of these people who are homeless have some type of disorder, instead of talking about the people, how about give them some socks, give them some gloves, you riding past, do something for them. Find out what you can do in your local areas, how you can donate some things to some of these people,
That's
some of these
good.
organizations to help people out instead of judging them because they're going through enough as it is. And I guarantee you would not want to trade places. You
That's
wouldn't
That
want to
part.
live
part.
a day in what they're going through.
That's
I was in
right.
nursing school and we had a project in our psych class where we had to wear headphones and the headphones were speaking, like hallucinations, the auditory hallucinations. And let me tell you something.
Mm.
I'm a very spiritual person. I had that thing in my ear. I said, the devil is a lie. I'm not listening to this no more. You can give me an
Right.
F. You can whatever you want to do, boo.
Right.
But
Because
I'm
it
not with.
becomes embedded.
Right.
I mean, the language, just like
Yeah.
that's the
Yeah.
closest thing that I've ever had to,
Right.
endure. The closest thing to an auditory hallucination. But it was, and that's I could pull those headphones off, and
Right.
those voices went away. But I can imagine living that every day
That's good. That's
and
good.
they can't turn it off, oftentimes. Even some people with medication still struggle with some form of hallucination. It's just the voices are quieter, is what I've heard.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
so just be mindful
Yeah.
of the people that are in your environment that may be struggling with some of these disorder and can be struggling with the paranoid delusion. And just show people love and kindness, man.
Yeah.
That's all
And
I have.
especially in your family.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so as we're wrapping this up, I love everything that everybody said. And, we talked about some of the dynamics that has to do with a lot of things that people think about and some people will even inspect. But, we don't realize that something so simple as OCD.
Mm.
People, I mean, come on, and those are things people believe is, oh, I just like, no, 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 honey, you have a literally a psychosis. I promise you, look it up. I got the psych on here now. It's seriously, it's not normal. That is not a normal behavior. OCD, where I just like stuff to be this way. I just like stuff. No, that's kind of you're mentally
It's
got some
dormant.
instability there. Right. It's
It's
not
dormant. That's
okay.
good.
It's
That's
dormant.
It is. It's and so we talked about some of those issues that many people think about, but even the concept of jealousy.
yeah.
You walk in a room and you think, girl, ain't nobody paying no attention to you. Ain't nobody thinking
Or
about
your
you. Ain't
man.
nobody paying no attention
Right.
to your clothes, your
Right.
shoes, your hair, your purse. Don't
Or your
nobody want to
man.
be you. Or at that point, no, I mean, all they did was just turn around and look a certain way, and now you got this whole paranoia that they after you, they want to be like you, they want your
Oh
man,
yeah.
what they looking at. Like, see, we don't want to deal with the realities that
Mm-hmm.
is not normal
Normal.
No.
behavior. Something is wrong with that. Now, we dealt with and we talked about the things that most people would consider obvious psychosis and obvious paranoid delusions, but let's talk about these things that we don't even recognize. It's also symptoms.
Mm-hmm.
Come
And that
on.
we
Come on.
co-sign.
Symptoms, right? And right, that part. You know what I'm saying? Oh, girl, yeah. That girl, listen, boo. Don't nobody want you. Don't nobody want to be like your man. Don't nobody want that.
Mm-mm.
You
Yeah.
understand? We just looked over.
Right.
You walk, you know what I'm
You
saying?
don't.
I'm staring at you.
Yeah.
Think I'm staring at you. But I'm telling you, and I can speak on that because I once was that individual that felt like that, right? I promise you. And that's far from the truth.
Mhm.
That whole concept, that jealousy, jealousy really is as cruel as the grave. Like, literally, it is. Like, right? It really is. And so we have to understand that even when we're talking about this paranoia, all of those things qualifies you as having some type of mental instability. You're not stable. Like, it's not normal for people to have OCD. It's not normal. Those conditions are not contrary to, oh, I'm just a clean person. No, you're
It's
not.
excessive.
You're not. It's
Right,
something else
right.
going on that's dormant that needs to be dealt with. Right. And so we have to understand, we can talk about the obvious things,
Mhm.
but there is something working in what's not obvious.
And the
Okay. There's
grandiosity.
It
something else
is.
working. And so you have to understand that all of these issues need to be dealt with, right? Because that's what's keeping us hindered is
Come
those
on.
issues. And that's why we cannot necessarily move into the things that we want to move into because of those. I like how Dr. Heather said those things that lie dormant.
Yeah.
You don't even
Mhm.
recognize it. Many people would never believe that OCD is a real mental illness.
It is.
It is.
And so
Yeah.
a trauma happens, then it's excavated.
Right.
Mhm.
There you
Like
go.
when you can't sleep unless you mop the floor before you go to bed.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Or my father, he knew when the cup moved 3/4 of an inch, and we
Yeah.
would have to rake the carpet.
Mhm.
Listen,
Yeah.
what happens when a trauma hit him?
Mm.
Right.
It becomes
Mhm.
extremely abnormal. So
Yeah.
you're talking good, Dr.
Yeah.
Sharma.
Yeah.
This is.
People do
Yeah.
not,
Mhm.
these are all,
They-
it's just dormant,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
dormant. They're in that almost
Mhm.
teeter, they're in that normal kind of
Yeah.
state,
But
right?
Mhm.
But
yeah.
then
Yeah.
something happens and it just
Mhm.
changes up. And so whatever is on the inside of you dormant, that is what's excavated, right? So OCD is not my thing. I know paranoia is. Listen, let me be clear about it. I know where I'm at. Do you
Right.
understand what I'm
Mhm.
saying? So you have to be able to attack it. You got to know exactly what is happening with you so that you can address those things. And I love that you are bringing up these little small nuances
Yeah.
that really
Right.
ear over.
Mhm.
Right. Right.
And
That
if
we
you
don't
know
miss.
that you have a family history of these things, you definitely, like you said, Dr. Heather, you have to protect yourself. You have to know, you know that, okay, I have to monitor stress. There are certain jobs you may
That's
not
right.
need to take. There are certain people you might have to separate yourself from. There are
Yeah.
certain things you cannot do. I think I mentioned before, smoking marijuana, don't do it. I
Don't
just
do
saw an
it.
article the other day that's talking about the increase in schizophrenia since marijuana has become legalized.
Wow.
You already
Wow.
know that that's in your family history. Don't do it.
Listen, I got a story. This was a long while back, y'all. I'm saved and delivered. Listen, I need y'all to hear me. Latoya is talking truth because I know what's in my body. I didn't know at the time. I attempted to smoke marijuana. So I don't smoke marijuana and things because I'm saved. But when I wasn't, you want to know why I couldn't? Because they had to rush me to the emergency room because I had a whole hallucination, delusional attack because I smoked marijuana. I was the only person that was bugging out so bad that they became terrified and had to call the hospital for me.
Mm-hmm.
And we
so
hear that.
when I say that I had a whole, what you talking about, Latoya?
Yeah.
This is why I don't deal with substances because I already have paranoia in my family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I know what it did to me. So you guys,
And alcohol could do the same thing.
I don't drink.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Cocaine. That
Yeah.
first
All of
time.
them.
I'm scared.
You got to
Those
talk to your
substances, yeah.
children and tell them,
Yeah, I'm scared. I
especially if
don't
you
do
know
it.
what's in your family, like don't do it. Don't
Mhm.
try it. Don't engage
Don't.
with weed or alcohol,
Because
don't.
like you said, everybody, it could be six of you, right? Everybody else can do it and can be fine, but
And
the one person, right? And sometimes people don't come back. That
Right.
I had a guy, 18 years old, catatonic. One time, one
man.
time, smoke weed, one time. That's it.
Mm.
So you don't know. You have to be careful. Those genes can be there. They can be lying dormant, and then all it takes is
That's
the
it.
right environment, whether it's chemical, whether it's stress, and then those genes turn on, right?
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
epigenetics. It talks about, it's a study of how genes, are turned on and off. Now
Wow.
it can be used for good and it can be used for bad, because you
Oh
also can
yeah. That's
change gene
good.
expression by being in certain conditions, being eating certain foods and things
Yeah.
like that. You can turn those genes off. But honey, a lot of times you don't want to turn on that gene.
You don't want to
That's
turn it
right.
on.
You don't want to turn them on. And I think that's what, but that's what we're here to talk about. Helping people to understand certain things that they may not even think about, that does not even cross their mind. I mean, there's a lot that we want to deal with, even the concepts of individuals, believing that they have a sickness that they really don't have.
Yes.
Like,
Yes, we
we
got to
can
get
go
into
deep
that.
and deep and deep
Yeah.
and deep
The
into this,
magic.
because some people, they believe, like, they got, I mean, and listen, the way that the body works, the way that the mind operates, the way that it causes the brain to begin to release those chemicals, and it will cause you to believe, and you will go through every symptom
Yep.
like the individual that's actually experiencing
Mm-hmm.
that type of
Mhm.
sickness.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're taking on
Yeah.
all the elements
Yeah.
of that sickness, and you don't even have a diagnosis,
And then it
right?
becomes you.
Yeah.
And so that's why I say we don't understand how powerful
Mm-hmm.
that the mind really is. And as we're ending now, because we have went way over,
I
y'all, but
know.
we wanted to talk to you guys and just let you know that we are here just to educate you. We don't just come with the education, but we come with the experiential knowledge, and even how
Mm-hmm.
to walk out the freedom of it all, right? And so you have all those dynamics. Like, I'm telling you, we're gonna get into all that, even people taking it on sickness, and before you know it, you got sick for real, because your mind
Mm-hmm.
just told you that you battling with some type of illness, that, I mean, you conjured up the symptoms,
Yeah.
because the way that the mind works, the mind begins to release chemicals into the brain, and now the brain said, okay, that's what the mind say.
So
Now
let me
your
do it.
mind right
Mm-hmm.
here has released chemicals through your brain, and now your brain is saying, okay, operate just according to how the mind believed it. I'ma
That's
stop right
it.
there. So
Yeah.
listen,
The mind talks to the
everybody,
organs.
Yes.
we
That's
thank you
it.
so much for joining us for this episode of Safe Space Talks.
Yeah.
God bless you all. Bye
All right.
bye.